Face the fear, build the future. That is the motto of our founder, the one whom we refer to as A. It's a very great name. Tell me, if you had to choose one, what part of the motto do you prefer? I prefer building the future. The future is inevitable, but ever undecided. One may simply lie atop the sand of the future, or they may shape it with purpose. Lobotomy Corporation is an innovative company. The harvesting technologies we've discovered are such a... Please excuse my lack of vocabulary. It's simply remarkable. These technologies could be the salvation of mankind. With these, we will meld the future, creating brand new paths. There was a bit of confusion last time, wasn't there? Usually I'm in charge of the security of your office. However, it seems that I failed to pay close enough attention to the Sephiroth meeting room. I heard a control team employee has resigned from the corporation. Good job. You do know what it means to resign here in the company, don't you? I'll take that as a no. I do sometimes miscalculate what information I should deliver to you, and what I shouldn't. Some aspects of our company that I consider natural and obvious may come as quite a shock to you. You have a variety of roles here. It's like a well-structured play. Every actor has a role and they must be faithful to their part without any air, synergizing with each other. Now, imagine that one of the actors decides to leave the stage because they didn't like their role. The actor should have played their predetermined part at the predetermined timing before making their exit stage left. But to leave the stage without fulfilling their part means that the life of the role and its actor are finished. That is what we mean when we say someone resigns. Great job, manager. You did exactly what I asked of you. I knew you could do it. You'll never guess how much I rooted for you back there. As for me, the day went alright. We covered a joint emergency protocol drill for my team. Not a single dropout or injury. Everyone did a good job. Not to say that it wasn't perfect, though. By the way, manager, have you seen something creepier than the abnormalities? Those entities that wander the facility unable to be contained, and sometimes they manifest themselves in the corridors. The drills do no good when you encounter them, since we don't have enough data on them, so we always have to stay alert. No matter how meticulous our plan is, we can't control the unknown. Sometimes when I encounter them, I get a strange feeling. It's not like fear or anything, some other sensation. Strange, isn't it? I feel nauseous, like something within me is palpitating out of control. It feels like I'm no longer myself. How can I describe it? Like something's wriggling inside of me? Little by little. So after all that, hello and welcome back to Lobotomy Corporation for day 2 of this playthrough. Last time we just finished a really short day, and this time it's just gonna be another short day because all our mission is just to get 4 good works, which is pretty easy to accomplish, as you could see earlier. Probably gonna hire one more employee. I'm just gonna use one of the pre-made employees, and by that I mean there's a few employees where if you put in a specific custom name, it'll automatically customize them. They were all made for Tumblebug backers, just a Korean Kickstarter website. I'll use my favorite one of those just because he's cool. He has some special dialogue you might notice that's only for him. And finally, after he's created, I think I'll introduce our 2 abnormalities currently in the facility in terms of what they do for the facility and how they work in gameplay. Once in hundreds of good deeds, the Zayn abnormality, which is always the first one you get unless you glitch the game, which I might talk about later, I don't know. It does very low amounts of damage to people who work with it, making it very easy to work with without anyone panicking. It does white damage, so only it hits SB. It cannot kill your units, only make them panic. And its equipment is not great, as you could probably expect from a Zayn that you start with. However, it's worth noting that its its weapon does white damage, which is very nice for something you'll almost always have in your facility. And especially to start with, because a lot of early stuff is weak to white, and white damage is also the way to cure people who are panicking, so it's definitely something you want. One Sin in Hundreds of Good Deeds also has a unique effect where it will restore a very small amount of SP if you get a good work result on it. It's almost never worth doing that, but it is just something to note. Finally, One Sin in Good Deeds gift, which is just a Crown of Thorns. It's not really that great either, but it's worth noting just because it's in the Head 1 slot, which is the one slot that you'd want to override the gift in. Because there's a certain gift that can instantly kill you that's in that slot. I will talk about that when we see it. Our new abnormality, Fairy Festival, is also a Zayan class abnormality, and it also does a pitiful amount of damage, but unlike One Sin in Hundreds of Good Deeds, its damage is red, which means it does damage to your HP, and if your agents run out of HP, they die. That's it. Unlike SP, which has a Grace effect. I don't really know if I would have phrased that. Fairy Festival's work rates, which I didn't really mention for One Sin, just because I'm dumb, and I didn't want to re-record it. But its work rates are good in Instinct, which you'd think would be good for a red damaging unit, because the lower your HP is after a successful work with something, the better training you'll get. But it's a Zayan, which already provides a penalty to training most of the time, and its damage just isn't high enough to proc the low HP bonus. It also has decent stats for attachment, but only when you're at low levels, so only level 1 and 2 attachment, and attachment needs lower HP and SP to reap the full benefits of. Zayans aren't good for training in general just because of the penalty for them being Zayans. Even at low levels, I'd rather just train with a Teth, which is the tier above Zayan. Fairy Festival's equipment is also not very good. Its armor is definitely better than the default, but I mean, would you really not expect that? And there's not really much of note over otherwise because you don't really want Zayan armor for that long. Its weapon is literally just the default baton, except with one more minimum and maximum damage, so that's not very good. And its gift is not great either. It's in a slot where it doesn't really have like anything super good to compete with it, so you know, but it's still only a +2 to Temperance stats, so amazing, I guess. Wow. That's like one whole work with One Sin right now worth of stats. Finally, Fairy Festival is the first abnormality we have that can instantly kill someone. If you get a normal work result with it, a bunch of small fairies will follow you around and heal your HP, and if you order another work on a different abnormality while those fairies are following you, the employee who got that work ordered and will be eaten by the fairies and killed instantly. So just don't do that. They were really only going to be following you for that long, so as long as you're like paying any amount of attention and you know it's a mechanic, it's really easy to avoid. There's not really much to note about Fairy Festival other than that. I wouldn't recommend it if you're trying to make a great facility. Really the only thing I've noted for it is that it's relatively safe even though it has an instant kill, but I'd call most of the Zayans and Teths relatively safe, and it's not really a good selling point for an abnormality. I've probably cut off before that. And now it's time to actually start the workday now we've gone over our two abnormalities, which are, of course, One Sin and Fairy Festival. Our only goal, as I mentioned earlier, is just to get 3 good works, and the results of working with abnormality are completely random. You just have a higher chance if you do something I like, so Attachment and Insight are the best ones for One Sin, and Instinct is the best for Fairy Festival. I'm just trying to spread out the works overall right now. Neither of them's great for training, but you might as well try to do that just because it's better to have a bunch of decent agents than just one really good agent, in my opinion. Not that the Zayans will ever be able to make a really good agents. They suck. And they only get worse at raising stats the higher your own stats get, and they're already not great at it. If I wanted to, if I wasn't paying attention to the missions, I would have already been halfway through the day after 2 works, but since I'm a little further away than that. You can wait to clear the missions, but in general I don't like to do that just because you get a lot of good equipment, not really equipment, bonuses. Like, the first mission lets you fast forward, I mean, for the first upgrade I got, let me fast forward how long the day takes, which is extremely useful. And there will only be better ones as the game goes on. Right now, one sin is currently melting down because the bar in the top, yeah, as you can see, it's been having, the more I worked with it, an increasing number of red segments spawned in, and when it reaches the end, the Roman numeral is showing how many will be affected by meltdown. Once it finished melting down, I lost 5 energy. If I wanted to prevent that, all I had to do is send someone to work with one sin before its counter, which is that giant timer, hit 0. Later on, certain abnormalities will be able to break out for free if you do not pay attention to that meltdown. In general, I like to work all the non-tool meltdowns I see, and then tools are just situational. We'll see our first tool abnormality soon, but tools are not very good in general. So I'm going to get all the information on One Sin and Fairy Festival, which is just their work rates, their escape information, their stats. But I already knew most of this. I'm just getting it so that, 1, I have it in the encyclopedia that's for 100% completion purposes, and 2, it unlocks the ability to buy the equipment and the full story in the menus, which is just nice to have. Later on, I'll probably be working all the days until I have all the equipment and all the information for the new stuff, but for right now, I'm not doing that just because One Sin and Fairy Festival, their equipment's not really a high priority, and also, the secondary reason is just that a mission's coming up that will force me to work a lot longer day than normal. If you noticed, I stopped the day while someone was working and while the meltdown was ticking down. That was just to show that the meltdown the penalty doesn't happen if you end the day before it ticks down, which can be useful to prevent escapes if you can't deal with it. And 2, the employee that was working, they don't get the stats or the energy from the work, but they also wouldn't die if they were about to die while they're working on something. Our choices are 00360. You hear a song in front of you. It's approaching, becoming more colorful by the second. FO244. However, the curse continues eternally, never broken. And 00561. Life is only granted to those who hold no fear of death. And random.org, of course, chooses one that is slightly inconvenient for me, which is number 1, 00360. And now it's time for Skull Lore, aka the story that comes with reaching full observation of one sin and hundreds of good deeds. A silent abnormality that understands the conflict between good and evil. Its empty eye sockets stare at all those who encounter it. A giant skull attached to a cross. It wears a crown of thorns. It floats about 2 meters above the ground. While its appearance is bizarre, it is rare to record an incident of violence against employees involving this abnormality. It feeds on the evil that seeps out during conversations between people. The assigned employee must kneel before it, standing appears to be acceptable, and present their evil by confessing their sins to it. The way it feeds is unknown. We have cataloged the sins a person can commit to 3 levels. Level 1, a small lie or action that either goes unnoticed or can be shared in jest. Level 2, sins that are more serious and only shared with the closest of friends. Level 3, sins so profound that they cannot be shared with anyone. These will be taken to the grave. Employee Redacted had been assigned to confess a level 1 sin. Energy production via the abnormality is increased by 12%. Employee Redacted was assigned to confess a level 2 sin. Energy production via the abnormality increased by 15%. We assigned Employee Redacted to confess level 3 sin. 1 minute and 48 seconds after the employee was sent in, a bright flash of light was seen. The light was so bright it could be seen outside of the containment unit. Immediately following the light, there was a facility-wide power outage. The phenomena lasted for 2 hours. Employee Redacted lost 6 years of their memory. Further experiments are cancelled. Scientific ethics decree that all footage of those who participate in the experiment is to be kept sealed. However, the incident left us no choice but to review the footage of the containment unit. Employee Redacted. This happened during Redacted at about 4 p.m. Anyways, there was a railway about 20 minutes from my house. Some of my good friends and I decided to dress up as forest animals. One of us chose to go as a deer. It was a crude costume, it could hardly be called one, to be honest. Just a pair of clumsily made antlers, and a dark outfit with some deer-like spots on it. I don't know how our deer friend wandered into the woods. We didn't even notice he was missing for maybe an hour. We searched for him and finally found him in some bushes. We called out his name, and I'm not sure if it was from relief or finally finding us or what, but he started sprinting towards us. And that's when we heard it, the gunshots. When I came to my senses, I saw his blood splattered all the way to my feet. After that, not one of us dressed up as an animal ever again. That's all. By the way, is this really supposed to work? Its eye sockets are empty. It's just a skull after all, but I doubt it's blind. It certainly has its gaze fixed on me, and I can somehow feel it's listening to me. Confessing to it does lighten my heart, admittedly. Afterwards, we investigated the incident in the employee's hometown to get a better picture. We learned that a boy named Justin was shot and killed in a deer costume by hunters during hunting season. Unlike the employee's confession, Justin was repeatedly bullied by other kids. Witnesses say they heard the kids shout, "Run, Justin, run!" right before the gunshot. After the incident, the kids at the scene moved out of town, and deer hunting was banned in the area. Honestly, you can't expect all our employees to give honest confessions to that skull. Around every 1 in 10 employees will tend to say something that is not completely true. It's a bit different from a lie. You can say it's a subconscious excuse they make. They distort perspectives to justify their actions, even though they are aware that they should be telling the truth. Once this happens, the confession is no longer a confession. Yes, I'm talking about you trying to justify your tardiness for 5 minutes now. The end. What a beautiful story.